The Awakening. The Galactic Concord had classified Earth as a Class 12 death world centuries ago. To the rest of the galaxy's species, humans were terrifying anomalies, creatures who evolved on a planet so hostile that it should have been impossible for sentient life to emerge. Humans were denser, stronger, faster, and more aggressive than nearly any other spacefaring species. Their bodies could withstand toxic atmospheres, radiation levels, and temperature extremes that would kill most aliens in minutes. But perhaps most terrifying was humanity's capacity for violence when threatened. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the observation deck of the UES Vigilant, watching the stars drift by as her ship patrolled the edge of human space. 20 years of service in the United Earth Navy had left her with silver streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes, but her posture remained perfect, hands clasped behind her back. "Captain," Lieutenant Park's voice came through her comm. "We're receiving a distress signal from Outpost Zenith." Alina frowned. Zenith was one of humanity's most distant research stations, built to study a strange stellar phenomenon at the edge of the Orion Spur. "Put it through," she ordered, making her way to the bridge. The main view screen flickered to life as she entered. Dr. Samira Khan, chief researcher at Zenith, appeared. Her lab coat was torn and stained with blood. Behind her, fires burned and people screamed. "This is Outpost Zenith," Dr. Khan gasped. "We are under attack by unknown entities. They came without warning. No communication attempts. Our defenses are failing." "There." She looked over her shoulder, eyes widening in terror. "They're not like anything we've seen before. If anyone receives this, alert Earth Command immediately. Implement Protocol Harbinger. I repeat, implement." The transmission cut to static. Alina's blood ran cold. Protocol Harbinger had never been activated in the century since its creation. It was the ultimate emergency response, a call for all human military forces across 17 colonized systems to abandon their posts and converge to face an existential threat. "Lieutenant, verify that transmission," Alina ordered. "Confirmed authentic, Captain." Timestamp shows it was sent 6 hours ago. Alina made her decision. "Set course for Outpost Zenith, maximum speed, and send a priority message to Admiral Chen. Include the full transmission and recommend immediate consideration of Protocol Harbinger." Lieutenant Park hesitated for just a moment. "Recommending Protocol Harbinger is... That's a serious step, Captain. If whatever attacked Zenith is powerful enough to overwhelm their defenses without warning, it's serious enough for Harbinger," Alina replied. "Send it." 3 days later, the Vigilant dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Zenith system. Alina stared at the tactical display in grim silence. Where Outpost Zenith had once orbited a red dwarf star, there was now only debris. The research station had been completely destroyed. "No life signs," reported Commander Okafor, her second in command. "But I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. And," he paused, "multiple spacecraft, configuration unknown. They're moving toward the inner system, toward the mining colony on Zenith Prime." "Magnify," Alina ordered. The view screen showed dark, angular ships that moved with unsettling precision. They resembled massive obsidian shards, absorbing rather than reflecting light from the nearby star. There were dozens of them, perhaps hundreds. "They're not responding to standard hailing frequencies," Lieutenant Park said. "I've tried all known protocols." Alina's jaw tightened. "Deploy sensor drones. Keep us at maximum scanning range. I want to know everything about these ships before we engage." The data from the drones confirmed her worst fears. The alien vessels were heavily armed with weapons systems unlike anything in human records. Their hulls contained elements unknown to human science, and they were methodically destroying everything human in the system. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called out, "incoming transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Chen." The Admiral's weathered face appeared on screen. "Captain Rice, we've reviewed your findings. Based on your report and similar attacks reported in 2 other frontier systems, The Security Council has authorized Protocol Harbinger, effective immediately. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. It was really happening. The Vigilant is to continue monitoring the enemy fleet. Track their movements, gather intelligence, but do not engage unless absolutely necessary. All other human military vessels are being recalled. We're assembling the Armada at Sol. Understood, Admiral. After the transmission ended, Elena turned to her crew. Their faces showed a mixture of fear and resolve. You all know what Protocol Harbinger means, she said quietly. The largest gathering of human military might since the Unification Wars. Whatever these aliens are, they've awoken something they may not be prepared to face. Across human space, the call went out. 9 simple musical notes, a sequence from an ancient Earth symphony, transmitted through quantum relays to every human military vessel. To the uninitiated, it might have seemed like an ordinary communication. To human captains, it carried the most urgent message possible. Come home. Come armed. Come ready for war. On the frontier colony of New Olympus, Commander Jackson Way was enjoying shore leave when his wrist comm played those 9 notes. He froze, his drink halfway to his lips. Around him, other military personnel were checking their comms, faces turning serious. What is it? Asked the civilian sitting across from him. I need to go, Jackson said, standing up. Right now. Within 20 minutes, he had recalled his crew and was preparing his corvette, the Harrier, for immediate departure. Similar scenes played out across 17 star systems as human ships abandoned patrols, training exercises, and peacekeeping missions. On Mars, General Maria Sanchez watched as the orbital shipyards kicked into overdrive. Vehicles that had been in long-term maintenance were being rushed to completion. Mothballed warships were being reactivated. Factories began round-the-clock production of munitions and fighter craft. How long until we have a fighting force ready? She asked her aide. The first wave will be assembled within 48 hours. Full deployment within 5 days. Not fast enough, Maria muttered. The Vigilant reports the enemy fleet is moving inward through the Orion Spur. At their current speed, they'll reach the Arcturus colony within a week. We can have a strike force ready to reinforce Arcturus in 3 days, her aide suggested. Maria shook her head. No, we stick to the protocol. We assemble everything at Sol, then move out together. I won't sacrifice ships piecemeal. In his office at Earth Command, Admiral Chen reviewed the latest intelligence. The enemy, now designated Obsidian Fleet for their appearance, had destroyed 3 outposts and 1 small colony. Their technology was beyond anything in human records. And most disturbing, they never attempted communication before attacking. His aide entered with a data tablet. Sir, the Security Council is requesting updated projections. Chen looked at the tactical display, showing the gathering human forces and the advancing enemy. Tell them we'll have enough firepower assembled within 5 days to launch a counteroffensive. And if the Obsidian Fleet reaches more populated systems before then. Chen's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why Earth is classified as a death world. On the Vigilant, Elena continued monitoring the Obsidian Fleet's advance. They had finished destroying everything in the Zenith system and were now moving toward the neighboring Arcturus system, home to over 1 million human colonists. Can we warn Arcturus? She asked. Already done, Park replied. Evacuation is underway, but a full evacuation would take weeks they don't have. Elena studied the tactical display. What if we showed ourselves? Drove some of them away. Commander Okafor looked concerned. The Vigilant against even a fraction of that fleet. That would be suicide, Captain. Maybe, Elena admitted. But if we could delay them, give Arcturus more time to evacuate, and the Armada more time to assemble. She made her decision. Plot an intercept course. We'll make ourselves visible enough to draw a portion of their fleet, then lead them on a chase away from populated systems. As the Vigilant moved to implement this desperate plan, the greatest gathering of human military might in history continued. Ships from across human space converged on Sol, sleek destroyers, massive dreadnoughts, nimble corvettes, and carriers laden with fighter squadrons. Weapons were checked, strategies formulated, crews briefed, and all across the gathering armada, a message spread. Whatever these aliens were, they had attacked humanity without provocation or warning. They had killed thousands already. They had awakened the Deathworlders, and they would pay the price. The Reckoning. Admiral Hikaru Chen stood on the command deck of the UES Indomitable, the flagship of humanity's assembled armada. Around him stretched the greatest concentration of human military power ever gathered. Over 2,000 warships ranging from nimble corvettes to massive dreadnoughts, with countless fighter squadrons nestled in their carrier bays. "Final reports coming in," announced his executive officer, Commander Rodriguez. "The last battle group from Proxima has arrived. The Armada is at full strength." Chen nodded grimly. 5 days of frantic preparation had culminated in this moment. 5 days during which Captain Rice and the Vigilant had played a deadly game of cat and mouse with a detachment of the Obsidian fleet, drawing them away from populated systems at tremendous risk. "Status of the Vigilant?" Chen asked. "Still operational, but heavily damaged," Rodriguez replied. "They've lost engines and weapons, but their comms and life support are intact. They're drifting in the Ta City system, and the main Obsidian fleet, continuing its advance through the Orion Spur. They've destroyed outposts in 3 systems and are approaching New Terra. Population 4.2 million. Chen's jaw tightened. New Terra would be the first major human colony in the path of this mysterious enemy. The evacuation had begun, but only a fraction of the population could be moved in time. "Then we move now," he decided. "Transmit the order to all ships. We depart for New Terra in 30 minutes. As the Armada prepared to depart, Dr. Eliza Wright, the chief xenobiologist attached to Earth Command, requested an urgent meeting with Chen. "Admiral, we've been analyzing the fragmentary data from the Vigilance encounters," she said, her holographic image flickering before him. "There's something strange about these attackers." "Strange how?" Chen asked. "Their ships show signs of biological components, not just mechanical. And their attack patterns," she hesitated. "They're not strategic in a way we recognize. No attempt to secure resources or territory. Just systematic destruction of human presence." "Your point, Doctor. I don't think we're dealing with a conventional invasion. This behavior is more consistent with an immune response, as if they perceive humanity as an infection to be eliminated." Chen considered this. "Does this change our tactical approach?" "It might. If they're operating like an immune system, they may have a central control mechanism, a brain, essentially. Find that, and we might find their weakness." As the Armada surged through space toward New Terra, Captain Elena Reyes and her damaged vessel drifted in the void. The Vigilant had sustained critical damage in its last encounter with the Obsidian Fleet Splinter Group, but they had succeeded in their mission, diverting a portion of the enemy's forces and gathering crucial data. "Engineering reports life support stable but engines beyond repair," Commander Okafor reported. "We're dead in space." Elena nodded. "Continue broadcasting our situation to Earth Command, and maintain passive scanning. I want to know if any of our friends decide to come back." Hours later, sensors detected a massive surge of displaced space, the human armada arriving at the edge of the system. "They came for us," Lieutenant Park said, voice thick with emotion. "No," Elena corrected. "They're on their way to New Terra, but they're not going to leave us behind." A small detachment of ships broke off from the main armada to secure the Vigilant. As evacuation shuttles docked with the damaged vessel, Elena made her way to the bridge of the rescue ship, the UES Dauntless. Captain Wei of the Dauntless greeted her. "Captain Rice, Admiral Chen sends his compliments and requests your presence on the Indomitable. Your data on the enemy may be crucial to what comes next." Shortly thereafter, Elena stood in the war room of the Indomitable, presenting her findings to Admiral Chen and his command staff. They operate as a coordinated whole, she explained, gesturing to tactical displays showing the movements of the Obsidian fleet. No individual ship initiative that we could detect. When we damaged one, nearby vessels immediately adjusted to compensate. Dr. Wright nodded. Consistent with my theory of a centralized control system. There's more, Elena continued. When we managed to destroy 3 of their smaller vessels, we detected a surge of quantum communications between all ships in the vicinity, almost like a distress response. Did you detect any central command ship? Chen asked. No, sir. But the quantum signals all seemed to be directed toward a point outside the immediate battle area, somewhere deeper in the Orion Spur. Chen turned to his tactical officer. How soon until we reach New Terra? 6 hours, Admiral. The Obsidian fleet will arrive in 12. Then we have the advantage of position, Chen decided. We'll establish a defensive perimeter around New Terra. Captain Rice, you'll join Dr. Wright's team to further analyze your data and look for weaknesses we can exploit. As the human armada took up positions around New Terra, Elena worked with Dr. Wright's team to analyze the quantum communication patterns of the Obsidian fleet. Look at this, Dr. Wright said excitedly, pointing to a mathematical model on her screen. These aren't just communications, they're synchronization signals. The ships are constantly aligning themselves to some external reference point. Could that be their command center? Elena asked. Possibly, if we could trace these signals to their source. She turned to a communications specialist. Can we use the Armada's sensor network to triangulate the destination of these quantum signals? Hours later, as the Obsidian fleet approached New Terra, Dr. Wright burst into the Indomitable's war room. Admiral, we found it, she exclaimed. The central node. It's not a ship. It's a massive structure hiding in the Corona Australis Nebula, about 3 light-years from here. Chen studied the data. You're certain this is their command center? As certain as we can be without direct observation. All quantum signals lead there, and the structure is enormous, approximately 500 kilometers in diameter. Chen made his decision. We'll split our forces. 2/3 will remain here to defend New Terra. The rest, under my command, will strike at this control node. Sir, his tactical officer objected. Dividing our forces is a risk, Chen acknowledged. But if Dr. Wright is right, destroying this node could disable the entire enemy fleet. The battle for New Terra began as scheduled when the Obsidian fleet arrived. The human defenders fought with desperate valor, employing every tactic and weapon at their disposal. For the first time, the mysterious enemy faced organized, determined resistance from the species they had targeted for extinction. Meanwhile, Chen's strike force made a rapid FTL jump to the Corona Australis Nebula. As they emerged from hyperspace, sensors detected the massive structure Dr. Wright had identified, a vast dark sphere nestled within the nebula's colorful gases. It's not responding to our presence, reported the tactical officer. No defensive measures, no attempt to communicate. Scan it thoroughly, Chen ordered. I want to know what we're dealing with before we attack. The scans revealed something unexpected. The structure was partially organic, composed of the same strange materials as the Obsidian ships, but on a vastly larger scale, and at its core was an even stranger energy signature, pulsing like a heartbeat. It's alive, Dr. Wright whispered, studying the data, or at least partially alive. Some kind of massive biotech construct. Elena, who had joined the strike force at Chen's request, studied the tactical display. Sir, look at these energy readings. This thing is generating enormous power, but most of it seems dedicated to quantum communications. So this is definitely their command center, Chen concluded. The question is, how do we destroy something this size? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel, a theoretical physicist who had been studying the Obsidian fleet's technology. Their quantum communication network has a peculiar vulnerability, he explained. It operates on precise harmonic frequencies. If we could generate an opposing frequency, essentially create a quantum interference pattern, we might be able to disrupt their entire network. Could that destroy this structure? Chen asked. Not directly, Patil admitted, but it would sever the connection between this command center and the fleet. At minimum, it would cause confusion. At best, their ships might become completely inoperative. Chen nodded. Prepare the quantum disruptor. All ships move into attack formation. We'll generate the interference pattern, then hit the structure with everything we have. The human strike force surrounded the massive biotech sphere, carefully positioning ships to create a three-dimensional net. At Chen's command, they activated the hastily assembled quantum disruptors, devices designed to flood the quantum channels with opposing frequencies. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The sphere's pulsing energy signature became erratic. Across its surface, lights flickered, and strange undulations rippled through its structure. It's working, Patil exclaimed. The quantum network is destabilizing. Then something unexpected happened. The sphere began to communicate, not through conventional channels, but through directed quantum packets that somehow translated into intelligible language in the human systems. Wogai do you atck? The message was simple but unmistakable. Chen hesitated, then responded. You attacked us first. You destroyed our outposts without warning or provocation. There was a pause then. You are ANMOMALY. Dangerous PATTRN. Correction required. Dr. Wright leaned forward. They don't understand us, she realized. To them, we're just an unexpected pattern in the universe, something that doesn't fit their understanding of how things should be. We're not a pattern, Chen responded to the entity. We're a species, sentient beings with rights to exist. Another pause. Classification ERRR. Reassessing. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then reports began coming in from New Terra. The Obsidian fleet had suddenly ceased attacking. Ships hung motionless in space, neither advancing nor retreating. They're confused, Alina suggested. Without clear direction from the central node, they don't know what to do. Chen seized the opportunity. This is Admiral Chen to the entity. We demand the immediate withdrawal of all your forces from human space. If you comply, we will cease our attack on your central structure. The response came slowly. Kon CPT of NEGOTIAG. Owen. Unfamiliar. But ACCPTABL. Forces WLWITGDRA. Across human space, the Obsidian fleet began to retreat, ships moving in perfect synchronization back toward the deep space from which they had emerged. 3 days later, the human armada reassembled at Earth. In a solemn ceremony, those who had fallen in the defense of New Terra and other human outposts were honored. Admiral Chen addressed the assembled military and civilian leaders. We faced an enemy unlike any we have encountered before, he said, not driven by conquest or resources or ideology, but by a fundamentally different understanding of existence. They saw us as an anomaly to be corrected. We showed them that we are a force to be reckoned with. He paused, looking out at the gathered faces. The entity has agreed to open a limited channel of communication. We have much to learn about each other. But one thing is certain. They now understand what it means to provoke the inhabitants of a death world. In the months that followed, humanity established cautious diplomatic relations with the entity, which called itself the Consensus. Humans learned that the Consensus was a vast collective intelligence that had evolved over millions of years, spreading its biotech vessels throughout unexplored space to catalog and categorize cosmic phenomena. Humanity, with its aggressive expansion and unpredictable behavior, had registered as a dangerous anomaly in its perfectly ordered universe. The attack had been an automatic response, a correction of what it perceived as a flaw in reality. But in awakening the Deathworlder Armada, the Consensus had learned something it had never encountered in its long existence. the implacable determination of a species that evolved on a world that tried to kill it every day. And throughout the galaxy, other species who had observed the conflict noted with new respect and trepidation. When threatened, humanity does not go quietly into the night. They come together. They fight. They survive. Because that's what Deathworlders do.